Welcome to the board meeting of the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. This meeting is being held on Thursday, February 21st, 2019 at the Los Angeles Marriott Burbank Airport, 2500 North Hollywood Way, Burbank, California, 91505. I would like to call this meeting to order. I am the current board president. If I could have board members introduce themselves, starting at my far right.
Cheryl Turner, public member.
Oh, is it on? Can y'all hear me? Alita Carpenter, public member.
Good morning, Ken Maxey, public member.
Good morning. I'm Bernice Bass de Martinez. I'm the vice president of the board and a public member.
Good morning, John Deerking, public member.
Good morning, Paul Sellers. I'm a psychiatric technician.
Good morning, Donna Norton, LVN member.
Thank you. Before I turn the meeting over to the Administrative Law Judge, Matthew Goldsby, who will preside over the hearings, I would like to thank schools and all other members of the public who have joined us today. For the sake of time, I will not be introducing those who have signed in, but we appreciate your presence. If I could have, could I please ask everyone to stand and join us in the pledge as led by our fellow board member and military veteran, Paul Sellers.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. During the meeting today, public comment is welcome on any agenda item. As the item is taken up by the board under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, the board may not take any action on any issues raised by the public comment that are not on the agenda other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for a future board meeting. To allow the board sufficient time to conduct the scheduled business, the board may limit the time given each person who wishes to comment. It's not necessary to repeat statements or views of a previous speaker. It's sufficient to state that you agree or disagree. The purpose of the hearings today is for the board to consider petitions of reinstatement of licenses that have been revoked by the board. These proceedings are a serious matter and proper decorum must be maintained. Please take a moment now to ensure that your phones are turned off or in silent mode. Also, please make sure that you keep as quiet as possible during the hearings and that you refrain from making comments or expressions that may disrupt the hearings. Your cooperation in keeping these hearings orderly is appreciated. I will now turn the meeting over to the Administrative Law Judge to begin the hearings.
Good morning. Let's go ahead and go on the record. I'm going to... Okay, so the hearing is now open in a series of petitions that are here before the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. Today is February 21st, 2019, and the hearings are being conducted in Burbank, California. My name is Matthew Goldsby. I'm the Administrative Law Judge who will be presiding over these hearings. I want to give some preliminary remarks that applies to each of the hearings that we are going to be hearing today that will apply for all of these cases. Some of the petitioners are represented by counsel and some are not, so I want to explain the general procedures for the benefit of all petitioners. Basically, there are three stages to the hearing. The first stage is for the parties to give an opening statement. If you wish to give an opening statement, and it is elective, you don't need to, but if you do, keep it brief. Just give me a roadmap of what you hope to accomplish here this morning. It's not the point in time to give all the details of your case. That happens in the second stage of the hearing when the parties present evidence. I'm going to have the board go, I'm going to, well, actually, I'm going to have the petitioner, I'm going to have the Attorney General's office. They're here. They're not here representing the board, but they're here in an advisory capacity. I'm going to hear from the Attorney General's office for a summary of the case, and then I will turn to the petitioner to present their evidence and to make their statements. The board, each of the board members are going to be given an opportunity to ask the petitioners questions. So I'll go through the panel of boards. I might have some questions. When you're done presenting the evidence, evidence can be presented in a couple of ways. You can give testimony, either yourself or if you brought a witness along, and you can present documents. Part of the point of the board asking you questions is to probe the veracity of your statements and to essentially cross-examine you. The third and final stage of the hearing is for you to give a closing argument. I will get the recommendation from the Attorney General's office if they have any recommendations for the board, and you'll be given an opportunity to make your final argument as to what conclusions you hope the board reaches from the evidence. When we're done, the board is going to go into closed session and they are going to deliberate on what to do with each petition. You will get a notice in the mail of their final decision. This can take a couple of months, so it's very important that if you move, that you file a notice of change of address with the board, because if you don't agree with the final decision, you do have appeal rights, but it's time sensitive, and if there's delays getting mail to you, your rights could be prejudiced. Today's hearing is being taken down by a court reporter, so it's important that you speak up, speak clearly, answer yes or no, don't nod your head or shake your head for answers, and I will try and make sure you're audible and the court reporter can hear you. All of your testimony needs to be under oath, so what I'd like to do is to have everybody who's going to testify this morning to please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn. All petitioners, there should be at least 8 people standing. All right. Do you each swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. Let the record show that each party has answered yes. You can have a seat. And as we call these matters up, I'm going to ask you to confirm that you took the oath this morning. All right. So we're going to go off the record for just a moment, and then we will take each petition up in order. I'm instructing the court reporter that if any party requests a transcript of today's hearing, that these preliminary remarks be included in that transcript, but from this point forward, only the part of the hearing that applies to the party requesting the transcript will be included. All right? So with that, we'll go off the record for just a moment. And while we're off the record, I believe the first matter is Joan Chertoff, correct? Is Ms. Chertoff here? All right, you want to step forward and have a seat over here? All right, let's go back on the record. So we will now proceed with the matter of Joan Elizabeth Chertoff. The OAH number is 2019-020216. This is a petition for reinstatement of a license. Let me get appearances, please.
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the board. My name is Paul Parry, P-A-R-R-Y, and I'm representing Mrs. Chertoff, who is present here to my right.
Thank you.
Good morning, Elaine Yan, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California under California Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you very much. Does the Attorney General want to make a summary of the case for us?
Yes, Your Honor and members of the board, I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet and accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of documents as this exhibit. The documents consist of 4 sections. Section A is petition for reinstatement and the supporting documents. B is license certification. Section C is notice of the hearing and related correspondence, and Section D is the board's decision dated January 8th, 2015, accepting surrender of petitioner's vocational nurse license. I am prepared to offer a brief summary of the case at this time.
Well, let me see if Mr. Perry has any objections to Exhibit 1 coming into evidence.
No objections.
So Exhibit 1 will be admitted. All right, you may proceed, Ms. Yan.
On June 19th, 1992, the board issued Ms. Chertoff vocational nurse license number 158025. On September 25th, 2013, the board filed an accusation alleging multiple causes of discipline due to multiple incidents related to Ms. Chertoff's use of alcohol in a manner dangerous to herself and others. These incidents include attempting to drive while under the influence of alcohol, leaving her 4-year-old twins unsupervised naked and outside the house while she was inebriated and asleep in the house, and lying on the street inebriated while her 5-year-old daughter tried to pull her off the street, yelling for help. The last of these incidents led to a criminal conviction of child endangerment on September 5th, 2012, which was a felony. On January 8th, 2015, the board accepted petitioner's voluntary surrender of her vocational nurse license. The effective date of the surrender was February 7th, 2015. On May 29th, 2018, Ms. Chertoff filed her petition for reinstatement of her vocational nurse license. With it, Ms. Chertoff submitted 16 letters of recommendation, but none of the letters are dated beyond October 2014. None of the letters are from her previous or current employers, and none of the letters reference her ability as a nurse or endorse her for reinstatement of her license. According to Ms. Chertoff's petition, she has not done any continuing education to further her knowledge or done anything to advance her career since the surrender of her license. I'm now prepared to proceed with questions for Ms. Chertoff unless she or her counsel wishes to make an opening statement first.
Mr. Perry, you want to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor, I do have some documents. I was told to make enough copies for everybody. Is this the appropriate time?
Why don't you give your statement and then we'll get into your evidence.
Okay. My client, Your Honor, is a recovering alcoholic. 5 years ago, she made a very bad mistake. She got her first and only DUI. Unfortunately, she had her 2 young children in the car at the time. So in addition to the DUI, she was cited for child endangerment, which is a felony. However, in the time between the last 5 years, she's accepted her punishment. She spent 1 month in the county jail. She had to wear an ankle bracelet, which was never proved positive. It was negative all the time. She had to have an intoxilock in her car, which would not allow her to start the car or drive the car. If she had any kind of breath alcohol, she never, ever was unable to start the car, never, ever able to not continue driving the car when the beep went off. She's been a member of AA ever since this started. She completed her MAD session, which she was ordered to do. And what I think is most important is at the time of the incident, her 2 children were given sole legal and physical custody to her ex-husband. However, now she has moved to San Diego, has a wonderful relationship with her former husband. They have agreed in writing, approved by the court, to share 50-50 timeshare with the children. She's in residential, she's had residential treatment. She's been in sober living. Her probation was carried out without incident. As a matter of fact, the probation officer once said to her, "I don't know why you're here." And as I said, children were giving back. So the felony has been expunged, and she is willing to testify at this point to answer any questions you may have. And I do have some documentation as to the courses and things that she has done to improve her life and to get back into nursing, which is her love.
Why don't you present your packet of documents? Do you have a copy for the AG as well?
Yes.
Hand a packet over here and we'll pass them down. For the record, I'm going to mark the packet in its entirety as Exhibit A. All right, does everybody have a copy of the packet? And you are Ms. Chertoff? Yes. Welcome. We need you to talk into the microphone so everybody can hear you. Did you take the oath this morning?
Yes, I did.
And you're prepared to testify here?
Yes, I am.
All right. Mr. Perry, do you have questions for the petitioner?
No, I don't, Your Honor. I'd like the board to question her, and she's fully prepared to respond to any of your questions.
Well, let me ask you as a preliminary matter. You heard Mr. Perry make an opening statement. He stated some facts. Are all those facts true and correct?
Yes, they are.
All right. Well, let's see if let's start with the Attorney General's office. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Ms. Chertoff, I wanted...
Excuse me, could you speak into the microphone?
Yes. Ms.
Thank you.
Chertoff, I would like to turn your attention to your petition for reinstatement. So your petition for reinstatement is largely incomplete. So sections 3, 9, 11, 12, 13, 18 are either blank or not completely filled out. Why is that?
To be honest, I don't know why they're not filled out. It must have been an oversight when I was doing it, as I,
May I ask you the questions, Your Honor?
I'm going to give you a chance after the inquiry from the DAG. I'd just like Ms. Chertoff to do the best you can in answering the questions.
I don't know why, for instance, on number 11, have I ever read any books or articles? I don't know why that's not filled out. I continuously read books and articles more than on a daily basis. You know, I'm hooked up, as I'm sure to most people, on social media, where I find something that I will go in depth and read. I don't, so in answer to your question, I don't know why I didn't fill that out, and I'm sorry.
Turning your attention to page 2 of your petition, the question is, since the date of your revocation or surrender, have you been convicted of, pled guilty to, or pled nolo contendere to any offense in the United States or a foreign country? And you checked yes. Can you explain the circumstances that led to that conviction?
I'm sorry, are you looking at number 4?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I did plead guilty. I took ownership for the actions that the crime that I committed. I drove drunk with my children in the car, and on 3/14, it happened on 3/14/14. I did have an attorney, so it was being continued and continued. So it was after this date that I did plead guilty. Yes.
So other than the court documents that you submitted, the documents that came with your petition don't say anything about you or what you've done since 2015. I'm looking at the packet that you just gave me, and most of it are relatively old as well. It looks like the newest one is from 2017. Why did you not submit any documents such as letters of recommendation or AA records from within the last few years?
Well, when this happened and I identified as an alcoholic, I then put myself into treatment right away. And I then went into sober living. And at that point in my life, and I also had twins that were taken away from me that I was trying to get back. At that point of my life, with all the letters, with all the documentation that I was going to AA 7 days a week, probably 2 meetings a day, I had time for that. And my recovery was my number one. And so I devoted probably a year and a half to complete and utter recovery. My recovery still is number one, but I also have my children back, so I'm at school plays, I'm at soccer practices, I'm at this, where I am not going to meetings every single day. I have a sponsor that I talk to every single day. My recovery is still number one, because without a good mom, my kids don't, without me being sober and being the person that I am, my kids don't have a good mom. But that my focus has changed a little bit. Life has gotten a little bit different, where it's not 100% just being in recovery, not being able to see my kids, not being able to focus and be at AA 24/7.
Were you able to obtain any letters of recommendation from your current employer to endorse you for reinstatement for your license?
I don't have a current employer. My current employer are my kids. I'm a mom. So, no.
What assurances can you give the board that you won't relapse in the future and put your patients, your kids, and the public in danger?
You know, I've learned a lot in these past 5 years, mostly about who I am. I can assure you that every single day that my eyes open, I do what I need to do to be the sober person I am, because that entails that I'm the good mother that I am, to be the good nurse that I so long to be again. There's absolutely no guarantees in life, but as a nurse and as a person that has had a diagnosis now of alcoholism, I will do everything in my power to treat that diagnosis, to go to my meetings, to make sure if I feel that there's ever any jeopardy to use my resources that I have so strongly intact. And that's what I do. I just wake up on a daily basis and I go one day at a time to be the sober individual that I am today.
I have no further questions at this time.
All right, let's turn to the board. Cheryl Turner, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Would you tell me a little bit more about what triggered the incident that led to the DUI?
Divorce?
That'll do it. All right, so do you have a sober date?
I do. It's March 28th, 2014.
And so when you obtain your expungement, which I don't have right before me at this moment, so forgive me if it's there, but just tell me, did it address all of the felony and misdemeanor charges, if any, that were brought against you that led to the surrender of your license?
Yes, it did.
And have you had any other criminal convictions since that time?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's turn to Alita Carpenter. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We do rely a lot on the petitions that you send in, and the fact that this doesn't have anything filled out that's behind our reasoning. Can you say specifically why you want your license reinstated?
Well, before I became a mom, I was a nurse. And that's how I identified myself. I am very proud to be a nurse. It was probably
through all the rehabs and everything, it's the one thing I really did on my own. And now that I'm a single mom, I'm also I do have twins, a boy and a girl, and my daughter looks up to me, and she is so proud of the person I am. But we'll be at a park and someone will get hurt. Mommy, go take care of him. You're the nurse. You've got this, Mommy. And it's just having these 4 little eyes on, well, they're not so little anymore. They're 12 now, but these 4 eyes on me that are watching me that I just can't wait to get back into the field. I love what I do. I do love what I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Maxey?
Good
Ken
morning,
Maxey, for the record.
Good morning, Ms. Chertoff.
Morning.
You mentioned you had a sponsor.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about who that sponsor is. Is it professional or is it someone of a family member? And what have you been doing since you've been moving towards a better life to actually educate yourself about the industry, about the profession, and what books are you reading that are important to you in regards to the industry?
Okay. My sponsor, it just so happens in September of 2018, I moved to San Diego where my kids were with my ex-husband. And so I do have a new sponsor that I've had since September of 2018 in San Diego. I can only tell her by, her name is Ann. I did have a sponsor prior to that in the desert where I did all my treatment, and her name was Joni, and we're still in contact. But I call Ann every morning at 7 in the morning, and I see Ann every other Sunday. I go to a meeting in La Jolla. The Sundays I don't have my children. I also go to a Wednesday meeting by myself every Wednesday, lunch meeting in San Diego. That's my meeting. But so because I have a new sponsor, we are going through the steps yet again because she wants to get to know me. And so we are kind of starting from square one. But while we talk, it's not as... The first time I went through the steps, you've got to, do the steps. We will talk in between doing the steps. And she's like, okay, you know what? You had a fight with your mother. I think it's time to go do another 4th step, or, something like that type of a thing. About the articles and everything I read, I love science. In fact, my daughter this past week had a test on the cardiovascular system. And she's like, Mommy, you're just going way too far into it. I don't need to know about the red blood and the blue blood. So, we just... I'm sorry. So I'm just always constantly reading. I will also be, let's say, watching a TV show with my kids, and there's a medical show, and there's something I don't know, so I will Google it, and I learn everything I can about it. What else?
Second part to that question would be any volunteer work that you're involved in regards to the community?
I am. I do. I've worked a little bit as a drug and alcohol counselor. And right now I am on, it's called Camis and Canines in San Diego, and they take in homeless veterans. And when they come in off the streets and they are detoxing, I will go in and I will help and I will talk to the veteran. So I do sit on, I can't say that board yet because it's kind of new. But yes, and I have worked in drug and alcohol rehab.
Thank you.
Tammy Andozo, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Bernice Basti-Martinez, do you have any questions?
I do, yes.
Go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You said you have been studying and keeping up with the advances of science. Since your license has been expired for now 4+ years, February 7th was that date, you will have to take the exam again. How have you prepared yourself for the new exam?
Online, I have printed off, or family members have also printed off copies of the NCLEX test, the practice test, and I've been doing that. And then when I don't know something, I will then go research it.
In addition, what have you done in terms of the actual practice what you've now described was the theoretical part that is really necessary in order to pass the exam. What about the clinical portion, the actual practice?
Well, obviously, I can't do any clinical right now because I'm not licensed to be that, but I do have I was very fortunate as a vocational nurse to have the opportunities and the positions that I carried out while I was a nurse. I've been an ER nurse for 20-something years. So and none of that, I mean, I'm sure there's some that will go away, but none of my experience has ever really gone away. I can pretty much tell you so many patients and so many, situations that I've had, and that will play in my head, that code that I was in on, or that child that, got burned, or anything like that, and I go through, even to this day, is there something that's changed? When a burn comes in, I'm sure the dressings have been updated now. You don't have the dressings that you had when I was practicing, but I do look into all that. I'm also still friends with a lot of the ER doctors and ER nurses, and my best friend that's the ER nurse is here to support me today. But we talk. I can't practice.
So you are also familiar with the role technology
Yes.
now plays. Can you talk just a little bit about that? What's unique about it now?
Well, the biggest thing about technology that has been in place now that I have never worked with, and that is, like I said, I've been in the ER, is computerized charting, and that's going to be something that I'm going to have to learn how to do. I'm very familiar with the Pyxis and all that, so I do know about the medication side of it, but it's going to be the computerized charting. But with technology now, I don't know working what we can do, but I can look up so much on my phone. If there's just something out there, you can look it up. And I've got so many of my friends that are still working as nurses or doctors that I can ask if I don't understand. I don't know when, I used to carry around a big book that is, 3 inches in width that was ER diagnostics and ER, what you do in the ER, and you can always look it up. And I'm sure that's all available online now.
And one last question. You mentioned being so busy, you were unable to pull together more current documents. If you are that busy, how will you have time if you become licensed again and need to go to work?
It's not that I'm too busy to pull in current documents. It's that life has taken over where I'm not sitting in a rehab for 90 days and going to meetings 2 or 3 times a day. I'm now picking my kids up from school. So everyone, I can walk into my meeting now on Wednesday and say, can everybody write me a letter of recommendation? I just never did. It's just kind of my way of life now. It's not so much what I have to do. I do what I want to do. And that has absolutely nothing of getting letters or anything like that, but it's just, I never even thought to ask them for letters. Oh, sorry. I never even thought to ask them for letters. It's just, it's where I go on Wednesdays, it's where I go on Sundays. It's just who I am now.
Thank you.
John Deerking, do you have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Chertoff.
Good morning.
At page 2 of your petition, you indicated that you sustained convictions for 2 crimes March 14th of 2014, right?
Yes.
And one was the DUI 23152 under the vehicle code, and the other was 23572 of the vehicle code. Now, there was also a reference to conviction for PC 273, willful cruelty to a child. Were these separate cases or were they consolidated? Do you know?
I'm sorry, what was the PC?
273, willful cruelty to a child.
I'm totally unaware of that. If it's willful, that certainly is not my client. Unless,
Mr. Perry, we need you to speak into the microphone.
I'm not doubting it, I'm not familiar with it.
It was part of Ms. Chertoff's declaration. At line 3.
Is petition?
It's in your exhibits that you presented to the board. On the first page of the declaration you prepared for your client, paragraph 3.
I'm still not familiar. What page are you looking
On the face page of your declaration of the exhibits that you presented to the board. Paragraph 3.
Your Honor, I've got to admit that I'm not that familiar with, I know I wrote this, but I'm not familiar with that willful cruelty. I think the fact that children were in the car, they were certainly restrained properly, but the fact that they were in the car while she was drunk might very well be identified as willful.
Well, I think this is getting, I want to hear the question again. I'm not sure if this is responsive to the question. What was your question?
My question was, the petitioner indicates that she sustained convictions for 2 separate vehicle code violations. And then there's a reference to PC 273, which is, or 237, rather, I think it might be 273. But that notwithstanding, I wanted to know if they're separate convictions or they were consolidated for purposes of this court case.
My client is advising me that might
Well,
be
I want the client to, your client to answer the question. To the extent you have personal knowledge and can answer it.
I believe that they're 2 separate cases. I believe that prior to my DUI conviction, I was drunk at my house and my daughter called 911 because I was passed out.
Okay, so for purposes of sentencing,
Yes.
it was consolidated and you sustained probably, well, correct me if I'm wrong, you sustained 3 convictions then on March 14th, 2014?
What had happened was because I got I was put on probation because of that one at the house. And I was put on probation, and because I got the DUI, it was also a violation of probation. So it kind of all went together, but if that's, I think that because I had twins, they said if I said yes to one child, that they wouldn't do it for 2 children, if that makes sense. There were 2
Okay.
children in the house.
So I just want to be clear. So your actions occurred on 2 different dates or 2 different instances. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. The date of your petition was, do you recall the date of your petition?
No, I don't. One moment, please. (5/29/18).
Thank you. At page 3, under employment status history, just so we're on the same page, list all employers for the past 7 years. And you indicate your employer as ReadyLink Nurse Staffing, and the date of employment, you put September 2016 to the present.
That is correct, but I am no longer there. I was terminated in August of 2018 and then moved to
You were terminated when?
August of 2018.
And was that for cause?
It's sales, and my sales weren't up.
Did you seek employment after that?
Yes.
Anything in the medical or nursing fields?
Drug and alcohol rehab.
But you didn't indicate that or update the board as to the current status of your petition?
I have not found anything. I'm just doing the volunteer at Camis and Canines.
Okay. You surrendered your license. Do you recall what date that was?
I believe it took effect on February 7th of 2000, was it 14 or 15? I'm not sure exactly.
Well, we have that date. I was just, and that was pursuant to a stipulation for surrender, is that correct?
A voluntary surrender, yes.
Were there certain conditions attached to that stipulation?
I was told just go do what the state needed you to do that, and then come back and reapply for reinstatement.
Do you know if there was a cost recovery element?
Yes.
Have you paid any of that?
Well, I've paid everything to the state. I've not paid the $1,500 to you yet.
Okay, you indicated you were working your steps.
Yes.
Have you gone through them a number of times?
I've gone through them completely once, and now I'm working them again.
Do you know what steps 8 and 9 are?
You're making me nervous. Hold on. On the spot, I do 10, 11, and 12 daily, so 8 is, no, I'm not, I'm sorry, I'm just totally blanking right this moment.
Would it refresh your recollection if I said it's willing to make amends?
Yes.
And then step 9 is actually
Making
making
amends
direct
and not
amends.
where it would not harm you or anybody else.
Would you consider those critical to the step process as far as growth, development, and recovery?
Absolutely, to a point that I do them daily now. When I lay my head down, I make sure that I don't owe anybody any amends during that day.
Do you consider stipulating for surrender with conditions like cost recovery attached? Do you consider that part of making amends?
Absolutely.
But you haven't done that?
I've made all the amends that I've had to up until now.
Okay, there's a cost recovery element, and you haven't done that, right?
I'm sorry, a cost recovery element in the Board of Vocational Nursing?
As part of the stipulation?
I,
Board member, she hasn't been formally requested to make that payment at this time.
I got it. All right, thank you.
okay.
Good morning.
Hold on one second. I need to make sure that, can you state your name before you start? I can't find my cheat sheet. State your name before you.
I'm sorry, I'm Paul Sellers.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Paul.
What did I do with it?
I think I'll have, my one question, you compiled, normally in preparation to coming to the board, folks will put together a list of references and things like the sign-in sheets for Alcoholics Anonymous. You did that in the past. You did that in 2014. What were you doing that for? What was that being created for?
That was for the boards, because when I was told to voluntarily surrender, they said, like I said, go do everything that the state is, but keep tabs on everything because you're going to want to send that in when you're ready for reinstatement. It was also for the state, and it was also like when I was in rehab and I had to go to meetings, I would have to turn those meetings into rehab or sober living.
Well, why did you arbitrarily stop collecting the dates and the references?
You know, one of the I don't have a court card anymore. A lot of that is the court card that the courts give you while you're going through.
You can put that on a piece of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to make, but this is, you asked me why I stopped, because it was a little bit, I think, in my mind back then, graduation time. You know, I no longer have a court card. I can just go in and sit in a meeting now and not have to walk up. I didn't think to get it signed. I figured that the state, like I said, when I was told to voluntarily surrender, they said, go do everything that the state is going to want to punish you for, and then turn that all into us. And when I was done turning it into the state, and for whatever, I stopped. I didn't walk in with the court card. I was now the sponsor, not the sponsee anymore, you know, so I didn't have that court card.
You understand it's difficult for us to make a current decision based on documents that are nearly 5 years old at this point.
Absolutely.
Okay. No, I have no further questions.
Okay, Donna Norton, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. So I want to follow up a little bit on what Mr. Sellers was talking about. It is difficult for us to assess you currently based upon things that are 4 and 5 years old, and that's what we're tasked with doing, right? So by your testimony right now, it seems like you were very active in your recovery, but kind of lacking in the last few years, and you're just, to quote you, living your life. But we don't have anything to validate that on just your word. So that is concerning to the board. It's concerning to me. I want to go back to a couple other things as well. I think it was your lawyer said that you suffered 1 DUI and that was your causative factor for where you are today. Is that part of your opening statement, correct?
I'm sorry? What was the question?
So in your opening statement, you said that your client suffered 1 DUI and that's essentially what caused her to be here today. But there was a number of other things that happened as well. So in 2011, you were drunk outside, right? In 2011, you were also drunk in public, correct? So it's 2 separate instances.
We need the petitioner to be responding.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And then in 2012 is when there was another incident, and then in 2014. So there were actually 4 incidences of being inebriated that caused you to be arrested in some fashion or another. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that spanned over 4 years, right? So you can understand why the past 4 years, where we have nothing to show that what you have been doing on a healthy wise is problematic.
And I completely understand what you're saying. I just hope you understand that it took me probably about 4 years, unfortunately, to realize that I am an alcoholic. And then what do I need to do to help myself to change? And I went full-fledged into it. And I get that I haven't had the court cards and everything now because it is just my way of life. I don't know if the diabetic really writes down all his blood sugars anymore because you start to just kind of get to know what you need in your life to go. Again, when I'm in AA, and they even say it, even to this day, court cards can be picked up at the end. I've never even thought to even put a piece of paper in there because I'm just here and present. It's where I just needed to be. That
I can certainly understand that for your life on a day-to-day basis, but for someone that is coming before the Board of Vocational Nursing, who has surrendered their license, and rightfully so, but you are now asking us to give you this license back, and our main objective is to protect the public, and we have nothing current.
And I understand that. And I guess my fault is when the boards told me just to go do what the court or the state needs you to do, and then come back with all that record, and that's what I did. I never thought, and again, it's a kind of a new world to me, I never thought to continue to get to this day. I can guarantee you that when I walk into my meeting on Sunday, I will be walking in with a piece of paper now and just getting it checked off for the rest of my life. It doesn't hurt.
Thank you. I want to follow up on one more thing as well. You said that you were terminated because of sales. And
Yes.
you said, okay. So can you help me understand how ReadyLink Nursing Staffing is a sales position? Because it says that you're a recruiter.
I'm a recruiter for travel nurses, and you have to have so many nurses working at a time on a contract because that's how we make our money. We would make, a commission off of that. And there were times where I would have like 10 nurses working, and at the time when I was terminated, I had 2 nurses working.
Was there just no jobs, or what was the reason that you didn't have? Was there a quota that you were supposed to have? I'm trying to understand.
You're supposed to be 3 hours on the phone a day, which I would make every day, but the call center or the call base that we were calling from were the same nurses over and over. They were either interested, not interested, or already in a contract. Or, some didn't want to travel because it was in August and school was starting again. They would do their traveling during the summer, take their families with them. School was starting, so a lot of the nurses are like, you know what, I do the travel nursing in the summertime, but now that school's starting, I'm a full-time mom. And I'll do it again, one contract again at Christmas time. It was, and because unfortunately of my background, I was with just kind of a small little company.
Was this an hourly or is it strictly commission?
Both.
Your sobriety date, what is your sobriety date?
March 28th, 2014.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you said first you said March 20th, so I misunderstood you. So talk to me a little bit about, because I am a nurse, so so talk to me about how you plan to, you'll have to test again, I believe. How you'll get ready for that test, and what's it going to be like for you stepping back into this world? Because you have said a couple of things that are a little concerning. One is that I didn't think, and nurses have to think. You have to think ahead. You have to prepare for things that are going to come up that are unexpected. And then you said that you made the amends that you had to. So it makes me think that you only make amends if you have to, and you don't make amends if you don't have to?
No, I said I make amends every single night, so I go to bed with a clean conscience. I don't make amends because I have to. I make amends because I want to. Well, first of all, I try not to do anything where I have to make amends. I try to live my life in that kind of a manner, but we all make mistakes, and so in AA, it's called keeping your side of the street clean. So at nighttime, I do my 10th and 11th step, and I make amends on a daily basis. About thinking ahead, absolutely. Again, this world was new to me. This world was, I sat in this audience 30 years ago and was probably rolling my eyes thinking who could do such a thing. And here I am 30 years later, I did such a thing. So I never thought it would come to me. When it comes to nursing and thinking ahead, and especially when I was working in the ER, we got to think as a team. It was very team-oriented. The doctors would hear what the nurses have to say. The nurses would hear what the doctors have to say. So I don't think thinking ahead in nursing and thinking ahead in alcoholism, because I've been a nurse for over 30 years. I've been a identifying alcoholic for almost 5 next month. So I'm still kind of trudging those waters, but I do know as a nurse, if I don't understand something or I do know where to go. I do know what to do. I'm learning that as an alcoholic. That's why I call my sponsor every morning at 7. So there's a little bit of difference. I'm still learning on this path, on this journey. But as a nurse, I don't have the best self-esteem in anything, but I do know as a nurse, I'm a really good nurse.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Perry, any other questions for the petitioner? Do you want to make any, well, I'll give you the final word. Let me see if the Attorney General has any final remarks or recommendations she wants to make.
I would just like to make a couple of final remarks to
All
the
right,
board.
let's hear from you first, and we'll give Mr. Perry the final word.
As some board members have noted that there is a lack of current documents with petitioner's petition packet, and the petitioner testified that she simply never thought to collect current documents. But the petition itself, on multiple occasions, requests these documents like continuing education certificates and letters of recommendation. And I would also just like to call your attention to the lack of continuing education by the petitioner. She testified or claimed that she read books and articles, but there's no evidence that she attended any seminars or classes to keep herself updated on this industry, no letters of recommendation from any previous employers about her skills as a nurse. And she's testified that she's simply relying on experience. However, she, by her own admission in her declaration, paragraph 16, page 3, that she has not been employed as an LVN since 2006. I just ask the board to keep that in mind as the board deliberates.
All right, Mr. Perry, any closing remarks?
Just that it's sort of like a catch-22 situation. situation. She has not been able to...
We need you to speak into the microphone. We can't hear you.
Sorry. She's not been able to be a nurse, and yet several of the board members have asked her what has she done to keep up her continuing education. She will obviously have to start from scratch, apply and take the necessary tests, and to take the necessary continuing education classes. But up to now, I'm not sure what she could have done since she didn't have a license and wasn't able to practice as a LVN.
All right, with that, we will conclude the hearing for Ms. Chertoff. Thank you very much for your
Thank you
testimony.
very much.
You're now free to go. Let's go off the record.
2-minute break, Your Honor.
2 minutes.
Exactly, 2.
2 minutes.
Yes.
Sorry about that, but we need to get going. Okay. Let's go back on the record. Are we on the record? All right. We will now proceed with the matter of Sheila Maravilla Correa. The OAH number is 2019020217. This is a petition for reinstatement of license before the board. Let me get appearances, please.
Deputy Attorney General Elaine Yan, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California under California Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the board. Lindsay Johnson, appearing on behalf of petitioner Sheila Carrera, who is present and seated to my left.
All right, thank you. Ms. Yan, did you want to make any opening remarks?
Your Honor, I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet and accompanying documents. The board members and the petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of documents as this exhibit. The documents consist of Section A, petition for reinstatement and the supporting documents. Section B is the license certification. Section C, notice of hearing and related correspondence. And Section D, board's decision dated July 10th, 2015, accepting surrender of petitioner's vocational nurse license.
All right, the package is marked as Exhibit 1 for identification. Ms. Johnson, any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 is admitted into evidence. Ms. Yan, did you want to summarize the case for us?
Yes. On June 15th, 2004, the board issued Ms. Correa vocational nurse license number 209600. On August 19th, 2014, the board filed an accusation alleging multiple causes of discipline due to Ms. Correa's fraudulent and dishonest conduct. Specifically, on November 15th, 2010, Ms. Correa filed an application for licensure by examination with the Board of Registered Nursing. In her application, she stated under penalty of perjury that she attended and graduated from Iligan Medical Center College in the Philippines, submitting various documents from the college along with her application to the BRN. In reality, these documents submitted, which included a Bachelor of Science in Nursing diploma and transcripts, were fraudulent. Ms. Correa had purchased these fraudulent documents for at least $500. On July 10, 2015, the board accepted petitioner's voluntary surrender of her vocational nurse license. The effective date of the surrender was August 9, 2015. On September 28, 2018, Ms. Correa filed her petition for reinstatement of her vocational nurse license. I am now prepared to proceed with questions from Ms. Davis unless she or her counsel wishes to make an opening statement first.
Ms. Johnson, do you want to make an opening statement?
Very briefly.
Go ahead.
I understand the board's more interested in Ms. Carrera. Ms. Carrera, as was just noted, was licensed in 2004. For 11 years, she worked as an LVN, and by all accounts, according to her employers and her patients, she was an excellent LVN. Her employers supported her unwaveringly, not only then at the time, but now, as they've written letters to the board, still in support of Ms. Carrera. In fact, after the surrender of her license, her then current employer kept her on, in a different capacity, obviously, because she was no longer licensed. But during this time period, she has continued to work in the medical profession. It demonstrates her strengths, her skills, and her passion. In 2010, Ms. Carrera was one of several LVNs in a certain community that was approached by an individual who offered them the opportunity to, what was called at the time by them, challenge the Board of Registered Nursing, wherein they were told that they could supply documents to the board and sit for the examination. There is obviously, as Ms. Carrera has learned, no ability to challenge the Board of Registered Nursing. You complete your education, you sit for the examination, and that's the way it should be. Ms. Carrera, once she learned of the situation and once she realized the role that she had played, took immediate responsibility for her actions. She surrendered her license to the board, she pled in criminal court, and since that time period, she has worked diligently to prove to criminal court, to this board, to herself, to her employers, her friends, and her family that she has been honest, open, and that she is rehabilitated. After accepting her plea in criminal court, she completed all of her probation compliance. She went back and had her matter dismissed. She has continued, as I mentioned, to stay active in the field of medicine, working diligently and making amends to those around her, to her employer, to herself. She has embraced rehabilitation on multiple levels, but as I mentioned at the beginning, I would prefer for those levels to come from her. And so at this point, with Your Honor's permission, I would like to question Ms. Carrera so that she can explain her rehabilitation to the board and her actions moving forward.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Share this. So
Yeah, you're going to have to share the microphone,
yeah,
so.
let me know if you guys can hear me. Good morning.
Morning.
Ms. Carrera, how old are you?
I'm 48. I'm going to be 49 in June.
I didn't hear the answer.
I'm 48 and I'm going to be 49 in June.
And
Sorry about
what is your highest level of education?
Right here in the Philippines, I'm a Bachelor in Science and Commerce, where I major in data processing. But right here, I used to be an LVN.
And are you currently employed?
Yes, I am.
And where do you work?
I work at the Pavilion at Sunny Hills in Fullerton, and I'm a case manager.
And Sunny Hills, what is that?
It's the Pavilion at Sunny Hills. It's a skilled nursing facility.
And as a case manager, what are your duties?
So when the patients come in the facility, I discuss with them plan of care. I make sure that they have the necessary services, skilled services, physical therapy, occupational therapy was provided. And upon discharge, I have to make sure that appointments, follow-up appointments was done. Proper home health follow-up at home to make sure that the patients are safe, and the proper equipment was provided before discharge.
And how long have you been employed by Pavilions?
I was employed by Pavilion since April 2018 of last year. But the administrator, this facility is my previous administrator at my other facility before I come into the Pavilion. So he hired me, and it's closer to my home. So
Prior to Pavilions, where were you employed?
Windsor Gardens of Anaheim.
Yeah, we are having a hard time hearing both of you. So you need to speak into the
Pass it
mic to
back and
ask the
forth.
question, then pass the microphone.
Prior to Pavilions, where were you employed?
Windsor Gardens of Anaheim, a skilled nursing facility.
And how long were you employed at Windsor?
I started working there 2013.
Were both Windsor and Pavilions aware of your license discipline and the reason behind it?
Yes.
And how were they made aware?
I notified the administrator at Windsor Gardens of Anaheim. So after I notified them, they discussed it with the corporate, and they decided to let me stay.
To your knowledge, have they been supportive of your reinstatement?
Yes, they wrote, actually the administrator wrote a letter, and he wanted to be here today, but I don't think I'm comfortable having my administrator in here. So they let me keep my job, and they hired me again in this new facility.
If the board were to reinstate your license, would it be your intention to continue working in the same facility?
Yes, I think I owed it I owe them this much because of their trust in me. They supported me all the way, and they have every reason to terminate me and no reason to let me stay, but they let me stay.
Are you aware of the board's concerns that led to the discipline against your license?
Yes, their concerns for the safety of the patients, the quality of care, and my critical thinking.
And what reassurances can you offer the board that you will not make such an action in the future?
With all the trust that I received during those years that I surrendered my license, I don't want to misplace their trust. I don't want my children to look down on me. I want to do what is always right. I put them to college to finish the whole education. Unfortunately, I'm not a model to them, but I'm making up for it. After surrendering my license, I know I'm embarrassed what I did, but I'm so proud that after surrendering it, I was able to have my son graduate school. My two children are still in college. The one is wanted to be a nurse. She's studying in ROP where I graduated, and she's at the same time doing community, she's studying community college.
In addition to your children and your job, are you active in your community in any other ways?
Yes, I'm doing community service during Saturdays. I help in the church. On Tuesday, I teach catechism class, where I am still in my students' mind the value of being honest, being trustworthy, and doing the right thing.
This work in your community, both the community service and then your work in your church, is that court-ordered or board-ordered or state-ordered in any way, shape, or form?
No, it's my volunteer. I already did my community service. After I got convicted, they have rules and regulations that I need to follow. I have to do community service in the park, and I have to pay penalties and fees in the court, which I did.
For your community service, you mentioned you completed it for the court, as well as your fees and fines. Did you have any probation violations during your time on probation?
No.
Have you ever returned to criminal court on this matter?
No.
Was the matter dismissed?
Yes, my criminal offense was expunged last, I cannot remember. I think it's
Absent the conviction, the single conviction we've discussed, have you had any other interaction with law enforcement?
No.
As a part of your reinstatement, and your surrender, I apologize. As a part of your surrender, you were ordered that if the license were to be reinstated, you would have to pay board restitution. Do you recall that term?
Yes.
And if your license is reinstated, are you prepared to make that payment?
Yes.
During the time period that your license has been revoked, how, if at all, have you stayed active in the field of medicine?
Fortunately, after I surrendered my license, my employer let me stay, and during those times, not to work as an LVN. During those times, they asked me to do the medical records. So doing this, I reviewed countless charts, and also being a case manager, I'm able to sit in the meetings with the doctors and nurses, the corporate. So I continue to to know firsthand the growth of medicine as well as the same time new trends in the medical field.
In addition to your daily kind of hands-on work that it sounds like you're describing, have you taken any formal continuing education?
Yes, I did. I think I showed it. I continued to study on ethics. I did a continuing education on ethics because I think the focus of my conviction is on that one, and as well as others like in the field of nursing.
Speaking of ethics, so thank you for going there. The board most likely, understandably, has concerns about your ethics and your honesty. What reassurances can you offer to the board that you are an honest person?
I know that the board has doubts regarding my honesty, being trustworthy. If you cannot consider the vows of changes that I'm doing today, I'm asking you to be considerate and look at those letters that my friends, my employer has wrote for me. I was shocked. At first, I'm so nervous, so embarrassed in asking them those letters because I don't know what's gonna be the reactions. But then on those letters, when I read it, it shows how I am as a person. And they don't judge me from the mistake that I made.
Is there anything else you'd like the board to know?
I promise the board that if I'm given the chance, I will continue to learn more. I love to learn, and I want to be a strong worker and continue to have an impact in my patients' lives as well as my children. So I think I can do that if I'm gonna be provided license again.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, before I turn to the others, Ms. Correa, this morning I administered the oath. You took the oath this morning? Did you raise your right hand and promise to tell the truth this morning?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I just wanted to get that on the record. Ms. Yan, do you have any questions?
Just a few questions. Ms. Correa, I would like to turn your attention to the 4-page statement that is attached to your petition. Did you write this statement or did your attorney write this statement?
I wrote this statement. I discussed
Speak
it.
into the microphone, please.
Oh. I wrote this statement in handwritten, so we just type it. The office just type it. But yeah, she asked me questions, and those what I told her.
Did you learn anything after the surrender of your license and your criminal conviction?
Yes, I learned that it's really hard without the license. I learned that you always has to do the right thing. I learned not ever to break the trust of people and the board. I learned that I value my license so much that I have to work for it to get it back.
Are there any specific actions that you have made or done since you surrendered your license to prove that you will not engage in similar fraudulent conduct to advance your career in the future?
Yes, after I was convicted, I followed the rules and regulations of the criminal court. I did community service as obliged to me. I paid the penalties. I also followed the board of nursing. I have those letters. I did my continuing educations. I didn't practice nursing. Always really cautious in everything that I do, and always have in mind to do the right thing.
Was there anybody who refused to write a letter of recommendation for you?
No.
No further questions at this time.
Cheryl Turner, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned that you have a Bachelor's of Arts degree or of Science degree in data processing from the Philippines?
Yes.
Okay. And so what type of degree was mentioned in your application? Your application,
For
the application that you submitted that resulted in your conviction?
Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
In nursing, okay. And did you review that application before it was sent in?
No.
Did you sign the application?
Yes, I did.
You signed it, but you did not read it?
I was not thinking right at that time. I just keep on signing those paperworks, which is, again, any reason it's not acceptable. I did a serious mistake.
Okay. And you know that you learned that you're still responsible for the contents,
Yes.
even though
I
you
should
say
have,
you did not review it first.
yes, I should have not trust anybody and verify with the board. Did my due diligence to verify that something is not right, that it's against everything that.
And who
I'm-
was, I'm sorry, were you finished? Who assisted you with the application?
The one who, I remember their name, I'll not forget, it's Joanne Kenny.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
Alita Carpenter, do you have any questions?
Just a quick question. You have a Bachelor of Science in Data Processing. What is?
Commerce.
Pardon?
Excuse me, in commerce, major in data processing.
Okay. What is your education with regard to your LVN license?
What do you mean, excuse me?
Do you have a separate degree that qualified you to take the LVN?
I took my LBN and RLP, that's it. I did CNAs, and I studied the LVN program.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Ken Maxey, do you have any questions?
Questions?
Tammy Andozo, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Bernice Baz D. Martinez, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
All right, John Dierking, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Ms. Correa, thank you for being here. I
Thank
just
you.
want to know what was going through your mind, or what was your motivation in securing the documents when you sought licensure from the BRN?
Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, what was going through your mind when you picked up the documents that would qualify you for BRN licensure?
At that time, I've been an LVN for how many years? I was told that if you have so much years as being an LVN, you're gonna qualify to challenge the board exam.
Okay, so your understanding was these documents would facilitate your challenging the BRN exam?
Actually, hold on. So at that time, when that lady approached me, she told me that she's gonna help me apply for the RN exam with, she didn't say any about fake documents. She said she asked for the payment because she's gonna request it from my school.
That's it?
Yes,
She didn't say anything about fake documents?
no, she didn't.
And you entered into a stipulation with the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, right?
Yes.
And that was after an accusation had been filed?
What do you mean? Excuse me?
Do you know what the accusation is?
Yes.
Which is the moving a document as far as licensure?
Yes, yes.
At page D11, which is the accusation. First of all, in the stipulation, do you recall that you admitted to the underlying factual allegations, which if proved were true, would be grounds for discipline?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry, it's just.
What
not
was your
clear.
understanding as far as the stipulation that you entered into with this board?
The stipulation settlement? Is that-
Right. What was the effect of that?
I surrender my license in that time
And you surrendered it, why?
because because of the gravity of my actions, I committed a serious mistake, unprofessional of nursing. I provided the false documents.
Okay, you indicated that the person that you got the documents from, she didn't say anything about fake documents. You told us
Yes.
that, right?
Yes, she didn't say about the fake document. She forwarded those documents in the Board of Nursing. Okay.
So you never saw the documents?
No. I signed some of the documents, the application, I signed it without reading it.
You signed it without reading it, but you do recall making an application to the BRN?
Yes.
Okay, paragraph 10 of the accusation. Tell me when you have that there.
I have it.
On or about November 15th, 2010, respondent signed a letter addressed to the BRN stating, as per requirement for BRN for me to be able to take the NCLEX RN, I would like to inform the board that right after my BSN graduation, I never had the chance to take my country's RN licensure exam. Is that correct?
Yes.
See, what I'm trying to figure out here is, you testified today, she didn't say anything about fake documents. And is that correct? Is that what you submitted to the BRN as part of your application?
It's part of that one.
And you reference a BSN graduation. Did you have a BSN graduation?
No, I don't.
So that part is incorrect, right?
Which part is that?
See, what I'm trying to figure out is, on the one hand, you're saying, you're shifting the blame to the woman, or whoever you procured the documents from. She didn't say anything about fake documents. But now you're testifying under penalty of perjury with your BRN application, something you knew was not true.
Yes.
All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Mr. Sellers, Paul Sellers, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Along with Mr. Durking, I'm a little concerned about so you're saying you had no idea that this application included forged documents. You had no idea.
I found out about it
When
I received a letter.
from the BBN,
board.
from
Yes.
the BRN.
Yes.
That's the first. My concern is this: if this hadn't been caught, you would be practicing today as an RN. And I'm not sure. Would you have come clean? Is this change of heart as a sole result of being caught, or have you had a natural transformation? Do you understand the gravity of what you did? This reaches the height of falsification of a document and endangering the public. It's very serious.
Since 2010, is that application? When that lady approached me, and I'm trying to look for her after months that I'm planning to do my RN education, I can no longer find her. I'm trying to contact her. She's not answering the call. So what I did, I thought it's gonna be tossed or trashed by the board when I didn't follow up with it.
No further questions.
Donna Norton, any questions?
Kind of along the same lines as Mr. Durking and Mr. Sellers. In 2010, did you have a baby?
2010. Baby? No.
The reason I ask is it's in that same paragraph where Mr. Durking stopped. It said that in that letter that was submitted, that you declared that you never had a chance to attend your graduation in the Philippines because you had a baby 2 months after graduation. How would she have known to write that in that letter had she not discussed with you? So I'm finding it hard to believe that you
This
encountered.
lady.
Oh, I'm not finished my
Wait for
story.
the question.
I'm so sorry.
I'm finding it hard to believe that you encountered a strange person on this, in life, that said, hey, I can help you challenge. And I could understand slightly if you actually, if someone told you you could challenge the board because you had been working as an LVN for so long. I can understand that. But what I don't understand is in going to school for your LVN and everything else, you must have known or should have known that there would be some education requirements. There had to be some conversation related with you and this woman. And she's referencing in here that the reason that you didn't attend your graduation was because you had a baby. So did you have that conversation with this woman?
I have a conversation about, she's asking me about my life, about when I graduated from college. So she asked me those questions, and she said she's gonna have everything ready for me. I just need to sign.
So she did tell you that she was going to request transcripts from the school.
Yes, transcript from my school.
So you did have this conversation with her?
Yes, transcript from my school where I did my Bachelor of Science in Commerce. And also in my LBN program.
Okay. So it was you made reference that you voluntarily surrendered or you entered into this stipulation with the board because of your shame and that you knew you had done wrong.
Yes.
But there were a number of years. That was in 2010 when you tried to do that, and it wasn't until years later when the accusation came. So had the accusation not come through, would you have informed the board that you fraudulently attempted to get your BRN?
Can you repeat that, please?
So you testified that you felt shame and guilt for doing this to get your BRN in this fashion when you found out that it was fraudulent. But it was a number of years later. So had that not come through, would you have informed the board that you had entered into that? Had we not found out?
Yes.
You would have. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, any redirect?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm not confused. I'm not quite sure what happened first or the sequence of events. Can you briefly tell us when were you approached about this? You were approached or you went looking for someone?
I was approached.
Where did that happen or how did that happen?
Somebody come to my work. They called me first. She called me first.
When you say
On the
called,
phone.
what do you mean?
She called me over the phone. She has my number, which I think I have, that's the signal already. She has my number, and she said she has my number because of a friend. A friend referred me to her.
Was that in 2010, 2009? When was that?
It's been a long time. I can hardly remember. But I was approached by this lady.
I'm sorry?
It's been a long time, but I don't know what year I was approached. I cannot remember.
Do you remember when you signed the papers?
No, I don't.
Help me understand when you realized the records were false. When was that? Or how did you come to know that?
I don't know really the sequence, but somebody come, an investigator come to my work, and then maybe after that I received a letter from the board. So I
When
don't know
was
which
that?
one came first.
2012, 2014?
Maybe it's 2012 or 2014, but I'm working at Windsor Gardens of Anaheim at that time.
So from a sequence of events, that's why I'm a little bit confused. I want to know what happened first, and then, and then, and then. You were approached, if I'm understanding correctly, someone called you offering you an opportunity,
Yes,
or you went looking for it?
somebody offered me because she said I was referred to her by a friend. Since I've been an LBN for a long time, I will qualify to challenge the board.
You were told you would be qualified.
Yes.
Did you verify that in any way?
No, I didn't. It's just hearsay. My friends is telling me the same thing. So when this lady approached me, I was not thinking at that time. I just think that it's true to challenge the board.
So you thought it was true, if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yes.
based on other friends?
Yes.
These friends also thought it was true, did the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So when this lady approached me, there's already people working in my facility that said that you gonna qualify to challenge the board if you already been working as an LBN for a long time.
Okay. And eventually, after that, you paid or you were told what you had to do?
She asked for payment initially so that she can pay for, to request those papers, to request my transcript and everything, and to prepare those papers. And some is to pay for her expenses in doing that.
To apply for your papers, where did you think your papers or these papers were going to come from?
Since I have a bachelor degree, she's gonna ask it from where I graduated as commerce and also an LBN.
And the name of the school you graduated from
Yes,
is, what's the name of the school you graduated, where you actually went to school?
for my LBN, it's Regional Occupational Program, RLP, in Ball Road.
Okay, and
And
where you
then-
got your bachelor's in the Philippines?
Yes, in
Is-
University of St. LaSalle.
Not the one that we now saw was it?
Yes, yes.
Had you ever attended that school?
Which one?
The one that appeared in the BRN
No.
application?
No.
Okay. And if I'm hearing you correctly, then it wasn't until someone like an investigator came that you understood these were false records?
When I received, I don't know which one came first, when the investigator came in or when I received a letter from the board.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Johnston, any redirect?
Very briefly.
Go ahead.
Ms. Carrera, why do you feel it's important to review documents that you sign?
Because you don't know if those documents are really true or not. If you're signing the right documents.
And what lessons can you articulate for the board that you've learned in terms of submitting documents and reviewing documents going forward?
You have to make sure that it's not a fake document that you're signing, and you're signing in your full knowledge, that you have to go through it one by one, each word.
Have you at any time denied culpability for wrongdoing?
What's culpability?
Sorry. Have you at any time tried to assert that you did not do anything wrong in this matter?
No, I accept full responsibility and I'm accountable for what I did.
Ms. Yan, any closing remarks?
No closing remarks, Your Honor.
Ms. Johnston, any closing remarks?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you. As the board is aware, and rightfully so, the purpose of these proceedings, whether it be license discipline, license denial, or reinstatement, is not designed to punish a petitioner. It's designed to protect the public. That certainly makes sense. There's a reason that case law has articulated it for us over and over again. This overarching question of, will the public be safe if somebody is granted licensure? It is in many ways a theoretical question, and one that no one can make any guarantees of. Fortunately, though, the board has been kind enough to grant us a series of criteria to lead us to help guide, or at least try to determine, whether or not somebody is in fact rehabilitated and thus warranted a license again. In articulating the criteria, the board starts, of course, with the nature and severity of the acts or the offense and misconduct. It makes sense. One has to consider what led to the problem before determining whether or not someone is rehabilitated. Certainly, Ms. Carrera made a series of poor judgment. Beyond that, she made a series of errors and mistakes. She admits to these. In 2015, as the board might well remember, there were a series of people who were surrendering or facing license discipline connected to the same scheme, the same underlying actor. And Ms. Carrera has admitted the role that she has played in that. She trusted somebody who approached her with an idea that she certainly should have followed up on, she certainly should have verified, who said, sign this application that I've completed for you, and she certainly should have read that. She does not contest that. She has admitted it not only today at this meeting, she admitted at the time of the surrender, she admitted it to criminal court, she's admitted it to those who wrote letters of reference for her. She told her employers about the situation, she told her family, she told her friends. These are not the actions of somebody who is trying to hide what occurred. Over and over again in the letters that were submitted, people talk about how she explained in detail what occurred and expressed remorse and regret. So then we turn to the next two criterion, which really in many ways work hand in hand, actual harm to the public or potential harm to the public. If Ms. Carrera had been allowed to practice as a nurse without the education, then, as she admitted, there could have been harm to the public. She did not sit for the exam, and she did not follow up on her application. So there was, in fact, no harm, steps she voluntarily took. But her understanding of the harm that could have incurred and the insight that she's developed from that is important. She's followed it up with continuing education in ethics, in rules, in regulations, in an attempt to understand, okay, not only what is my own personal guidance and standpoint, but what is expected of me as an LVN? What's expected of me as a licensee, to assure the board that she now has the education and the understanding that she might have lacked in the past. In addition to the continuing education, she has sought her own personal understanding to help quell any concerns about potential harm, and understanding on honesty and integrity, primarily as she discussed her work in the church and her involvement in catechism classes. So then we look at the overall disciplinary record, which ties in many ways to the overall criminal record. Ms. Carrera has one criminal conviction, a misdemeanor that has since been dismissed, and her disciplinary record consists of the license surrender in response to the accusation. On that note, it's important, I believe, to acknowledge that there's a difference, of course, between the accusation and the settlement. And the settlement contained, in legal terms, soft admissions, where it's acknowledging that there was cause for discipline and that the two are settlement is entered into voluntarily in order to resolve the matter. It does not, of course, omit every truth of the accusation, and the two are handled differently. That's not, of course, to imply in any way, shape, or form that Ms. Carrera has not admitted her wrongdoing, as we have stated and I have stated now multiple times. That's something that, of course, she has been open with. She should have read the application. She should have never allowed anybody to fill out an application for her or to submit documents without her careful review. This is, as I mentioned, her only criminal conviction. It's since been dismissed by criminal court. This was her first board discipline, and this was there were no prior warnings, a criteria for consideration, and there were no other violations. Then we turn to kind of the main factor, rehabilitation in and of itself. And this idea, which ultimately is considered to be the number one deciding factor of rehabilitation, the state of mind, or the change of the state of mind. Case law has told us that we can't necessarily pinpoint that. It's hard for somebody, the board, myself, anyone, to step into the mind of Ms. Carrera and decide, okay, have you actually learned your lesson? Will, in fact, you be different moving forward? So instead, we have to take not only her word, but the word of others and those who know her. In the matter of Brown, the state bar, when reviewing reinstatements, looked at the idea of not only a petitioner's own testimony, which admittedly is designed to aid their case, but also rehabilitation evidence in the letters that are provided in the testimony that's offered through those witnesses and the additional continuing support. They've also looked at the idea of the purpose of reinstatement hearings in general, which is to provide a benefit or to look favorably upon those who have achieved reformation and who have achieved regeneration and have been able to re-enter the profession. The board has not been able to observe Ms. Carrera over the last 3.5 years, as she has no longer been a licensee, obviously. But there are those who have. And when the board is turning back to this idea of public protection, Ms. Carrera, over the last 3.5 years, has continued to work in the profession. She has continued to work at a skilled nursing facility. She has continued to help patients, albeit not as an LVN, but in a different capacity that has allowed her to have patient interaction. And those patients have been safe. Those patients have trusted her. Those families have trusted her. And those employers have trusted her. They have had direct oversight over her during this entire period, well aware of the concerns that led to the discipline, well aware of what I assume would be the board's concerns as well, whether or not she would be honest, whether or not they can trust her with their patients. And they have found not only can they trust her, but they can trust her so much that as she testified, when her supervisor left, he asked her to come with her. He took her to a new facility that also continued to trust her and continues to trust her to this day. Several people from that facility have written letters that they've submitted to the board, and they've asked that she stay on as an LVN there, where they can continue to watch her and continue to work with her. And she, as she has testified, has the same desire, so we know where she will be. Ms. Carrera has not presented outdated knowledge, as her continuing education has shown that she has stayed up to date in the profession and the passion, and she has demonstrated that patients can continue to be trusted with her, and that employers can trust her, those who supervise can trust her. She has learned and articulated the insight that has allowed her to trust herself. And for these reasons, and the reasons articulated and supportive petition that's been entered, we respectfully ask that Ms. Carrera be granted her license again with any terms and conditions that the board deems necessary. Thank you.
Just a matter of housekeeping, you've presented to the board 2 exhibits, which are marked as Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Do you move those into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are there any objections to Exhibit A or B?
No.
Exhibit A and B are admitted. And with that, we will close the hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank
Let's
you.
go off the record. Oh, we're going to take we're in recess for till 11:05 sharp. All right?
Oh, Come and talk to Mike.
According to mine, it's 10:52.
Yes.